Genesis 15 verse 18 reads, "In the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates." Genesis 15 verse 18 is a specific verse in the Bible, which is part of the book of Genesis in the Old Testament. It describes a covenant that God made with Abraham, promising him and his descendants land from the river of Egypt to the Euphrates River.
Did the establishment of Islam as the religion of Abraham in the Middle East, or the Levant, fulfill the promise of God to Abraham that his descendants through Ishmael would inherit the land from the border of Egypt to the Euphrates River, as mentioned in the Torah, or Genesis 15 verse 18? Islamic scholars assert that the ancient scribes may have manipulated the Torah to favor Isaac instead of Ishmael. How do they present their argument? Islamic scholars argue that the establishment of Islam in the Middle East and Levant region did fulfill God's promise to Abraham regarding Ishmael's descendants. They point out that Islam spread rapidly across this area in the 7th and 8th centuries, bringing monotheistic worship of the God of Abraham to millions. It is asserted that the ancient scribes who wrote the Torah may have altered the stories to show preference for Isaac's descendants over Ishmael's. They suggest that this bias may have been influenced by socio-political factors, such as the dominance of the Israelite tribes, which led to the emphasis on Isaac's descendants in the biblical account. Historically, the Arab Islamic caliphates, after the rise of Islam in the 7th century, did indeed conquer and control territories extending from Egypt to the Euphrates River, which matches the geographical extent of the land mentioned in Genesis 15 verse 18. This has led some to draw parallels between the spread of Islam and the fulfillment of the promise to Ishmael's descendants. From an Islamic theological perspective, the establishment of Islam in the Middle East and the Levant is seen as the fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham, as it recognizes and upholds the significance of Ishmael's lineage. Islamic scholars argue that both Isaac and Ishmael are equally revered as prophets, and that their respective lineages are part of God's overarching plan for humanity, with Hebrew prophets paving the way for the coming of Muhammad, the last prophet. In summary, Islamic scholars argue that 1. The promise made to Abraham about his descendants inheriting the land could have been fulfilled through Ishmael. 2. The Torah might have been altered over time to give greater emphasis to Isaac's lineage and downplay Ishmael's role. 3. The rise of Islam and the influence of the descendants of Ishmael through Prophet Muhammad is seen as a fulfillment of God's promise to Abraham. 4. The spread of Islam and its dominance in the Middle East aligns with the geographical scope of the promise made to Abraham in the Torah, reinforcing the idea that Ishmael's descendants inherited this blessing. These arguments reflect a broader theological debate regarding the interpretation of ancient texts and the legacy of Abraham's 2 sons, Isaac and Ishmael, in the context of religious history.